Hi, and welcome to Uncanny LP. In this video, we're going to introduce the basics of your new site and how to get it set up initially. So you understand kind of how things work in the back end and what users will see in the front end. So at this point, the expectation is that you haven't really used your site at this point. You probably haven't even signed in. You've just received your username and password, and you're ready to sign in and take a look at what's been created for you. Before you're able to do too much, though, it's really important you understand how things are set up, at least at a high level. So I want to walk through those really quickly. What you may find on the site is that some things don't even work. And that's not a reason to panic. It's just because what we've done is we've tried to create pages and settings that are applicable to a wide variety of contexts. So what we also do is turn a lot of things off that people might not need initially. So because of that, because some things, some features are disabled initially, but we've still, created their availability on pages, you might see things that look like code on the site. So I want to explain why you'll see that. There might even be some links that don't function as you're expecting. So if you're signing in for the first time, we do leave things disabled strictly for performance reasons, and so you don't have something on your site that you're not expecting. So we'd rather that you clean pages up than have things on your site that are slowing things down that shouldn't even be used. So to start off with, you'll see something that looks very much like our demo site. And it does have a lot of Uncanny Owl information and a lot of other information that you will need to update. So the first step, of course, is signing in. But before I do that, I just wanted to show you what I mean by some things not necessarily working or being displayed correctly when you first visit the site. So as an example, some of these links, like events and forums, don't even work. And that's because we haven't turned on forums or event management for all sites in case you don't need it. It's a lot easier to remove the menu item than have to disable the plugin and then clear out everything you don't need if you end up not needing event management. And then if you go into some things, like in this case, a sample course, you can see that this is called a shortcode. So anything that's in the square brackets like this is a WordPress shortcode. So you can see there's a lot of instances of that here as well, because again, everything has been disabled out of the box. So what we're going to do is sign into the site and take a look at how things change once we enable things. Before I do sign in too, I'm going to have this window open as well as a signed in window. I want you to understand that what people see when signed in is different than what they see when they're signed out. So when I'm signed out, for example, I see this login link up here, and this is this set of menus that I see when I'm not signed in. So if I sign in, and again, you'd click on the login link, which will take you to a page to log in. Everything is something that you can modify on the site. So there's really not many ways you can break the site. So it is safe for you to go in, try experimenting a bit, customize things the way you think it would be appropriate for your context. So I'm just going to switch windows now. Let's pretend that I did put information in so that I am signed in. And if I switch to this window now, you can see this is what it looks like when I'm signed in. So what's changed is that instead of a link to the sample course, I've got a link to a dashboard for my courses, as well as a link to achievements. I've also got a link for my orders, this is all related to e-commerce. So it's a little bit different if you're not using e-commerce at all. And in a second, I'll show you how to turn everything on and off. And then, of course, instead of login, we've got a logout link there. So this is the signed in experience. It is a little bit different. So again, instead of going to backend that shows, that just shows the sample course, or that just a link that shows the sample course, then we've got a dashboard page, which of course right now is very incomplete. So what's going to happen is I'm going to switch out to the backend. Before I get into what all these things do, but I will quickly mention, these are kind of quick links here. that turn on or and off certain capabilities or give you access to certain things, or they're just quick links that will help you manage your site and give you an easy way to contact us too if you have questions or reference the knowledge base or something else like that. Now, what's over here on the left is a set of menu entries for the different functions available on your site. And if you're familiar with WordPress at all, you'll know that this does look quite a bit different than what you would see normally with WordPress. And that's just because we have customized things to really focus on what you will need in terms of a learning portal. So what we feel is most appropriate, and then we've organized it based on function. It's also a little restricted. We don't give you access to everything that's normally in WordPress, just because, again, we want to make sure that it's very simple and very difficult to break things. So we want to make sure that everything runs smoothly and you don't run into any problems. So I'm going to go through these menu items in a little bit more detail in just a minute, but before I do, I wanted you to see the difference for when I turn on some of these features. Now, this is a pre-release version of Uncanny LP, so some of these descriptions are probably going to be a little bit different. But what I do want to do here is just turn everything on so you can see the difference here. What happens when I do turn everything on here? And let's go ahead and do that so you can see the difference. So when I did that, you can see a lot of things changed over on the menus over here. We've got a lot of new capabilities, like the forums weren't there, e-commerce wasn't there, gamification wasn't there, events wasn't there. So a lot of changes in the back end. And then if I do go out to the front now, then you can see there's a shopping cart now here. So if I go back into my courses, you can see there's still a lot that is not working, and it's not showing these things. But some things it is showing now. Like in this case, it's now showing achievements in this widget. So a widget, just because I know some of you will be new to WordPress, elements that we are able to include in the sidebar, like a list of blog posts, achievements, course progress, course navigation, a lot of different things that you just would want users to have quick access to that would be on a large number of pages are things that can go in a sidebar. And things that you put in a sidebar are called widgets. So basically little almost mini applications that you can drop in here that will appear throughout your site or on specific pages. So anyway, why are these ones not working? Might be the next question. So that's because there are a couple of additional capabilities we need to turn on before you're able to actually get in here and see how everything works. So by turning on some of those modules that I talked about, you can see like now the events menu is working. Now the forums link is working. So these things are working now. If I go back to the store, then we'll see an actual store products in here. So by turning those things on, we're kind of halfway there, but again, use a lot of discretion when you're turning things on. I'm just doing it at this point to show you kind of what the difference is and how the site changes dynamically based on the capabilities you turn on or off. So the reason some of those other things are not working is because those are part of the Uncanny toolkit. And it's definitely a little overwhelming as you get started. Like, what are all these functions? Why do some things show but not other things? Really, the places you're turning things on and off are just under settings for LP features and tools for Uncanny Toolkit. This is where you can turn on and off, the two locations where you can turn it on and off kind of global site capabilities and features. So what's really important in here, I'm just going to go through, there's a lot of things. For all of these things, there is more information available if you click on the eye icons. It will take you to our knowledge base, explain exactly what the function does. So again, we want to focus on only turning on things that we actually need. So on the My Courses page, that course dashboard page I'm going to call it, there were a number of shortcodes that were not running. So again, shortcodes will only run, and we've got a list of all shortcodes in the knowledge base, but shortcodes will only run if the associated capability is turned on. So WordPress only knows to execute those and recognize them as shortcodes if something tells them that they are valid shortcodes. And that's where turning on and off the modules here, as well as the capabilities over in LP features, is so important. So I'm just going to turn on a couple of things that are going to be helpful to me. So a couple of things are already enabled, like front-end login we do need. The course grid I'm not using at the moment. I'm going to leave that off. I'm going to turn on hide admin bar. So this is the black bar at the top. And whenever you're signed in, you'll see elements that are kind of relevant to you. It also gives you the capability to create new items. And if you're on like a course lesson topic page in the front end, then you'll see a way to edit it very easily. So admin bar, though, it's not something we generally expose to regular learners. So if somebody's just going through the courses, they don't need access to these things. And it does get confusing because with some of these links, they would be able to access things in the back end. So the back end is what I'm in right now. It's kind of the behind the scenes of WordPress. So they don't need to access that. We like to try to disable it for their roles. So in here you can see we've got controls for which roles can see it, which roles cannot, and you can turn them on and off there. So one of the shortcodes on that My Courses page was a dashboard. So we want that on. That's going to make things easier. So the next thing, I'm just going to scroll through the list because I don't want to add more than I need necessarily. So I'm going to, let me turn this on just to add a bit of styling to the site in case I want to modify that. And then you can go in here and there's a way to modify your colors really easily just so it's a little rebranded to your site. And I want to turn on the resume capability. I've got that on. Menu item visibility, show hide content. That's where we saw a couple of different shortcodes on the dashboard page, the My Courses page. So I want that. I want to make certificates available. And that's as much as I need for now. And just keep in mind again, like the more things you turn on, it can affect performance. You want to keep things as fast as possible. So I'm going to leave things on. Like even when everything is turned on, it's it's slow as it's going to get. It's still quite fast. But at the same time, like even those fractions of a second for a lot of users, if it's high volume, you want to make sure it's as lean and as fast as possible. So that's why it's important to kind of consider what you're turning on and off. Like it's not obvious here, but I do have a timer running, so that page load took me about 1.8 seconds. Whereas, before I had everything turned on, it was about 1.4 seconds. So it's a small difference, but still it can add up once you've got, a couple hundred of learners or thousands of learners on your site. You want to keep things as lean as possible. So now that I've turned those things off, or turned those things on rather, in the modules, no more shortcodes here. Instead, we see exactly the content that we want to see. But if I edit this, you can see, those shortcodes are still there. It's just that, so let me just let that load. Here's the Divi Builder. So this is how the page is built, and we'll get more into this in subsequent lessons. But I just wanted to show you, the content is still there. So if I go in to edit that, these are the shortcodes we had in there before that you were seeing. It's just now that I have turned on the relevant modules, we no longer see the shortcodes. We see what we actually want to see. So in this case, there's a shortcode here to show this content to somebody that's logged out, and then this is where it ends. And then this shortcode for show this content to people that are signed in, and that's where this content begins. So that's why we're seeing the actual content now instead of just the shortcodes, because we've turned on the modules that make all of that possible. Okay, so I kind of got a bit off topic there, but I just wanted to explain, why you're seeing things that may be unexpected when you first get your site. And it's important to understand, like, if you don't want to see those, you just want to get rid of them quickly and then kind of modify the site so it's what you want, you can just go in, you can turn on the things that you think you will need or that would be appropriate, and then you won't see those shortcodes anymore. You'll see everything functional. So let's go back then. Let's go back to what you are seeing in an Uncanny LP site. So let's go to the back end. Sorry, I'll click that one. And what did this mean? So again, we've got kind of the quick links here. This is called the dashboard. When you first sign in as an administrator, this is what you will see. And these are the key functions that you'll need access to as you go through things. So down here too, we've got a bunch of things that are potentially relevant. This is a test site again, so a lot of the data is not valid on here. So there are 3 test courses set up, and we've got a little over 5,000 users just as a testing platform. So What's really important here too is you can move these widgets around. These are called widgets. I know I talked about them in a sidebar too. You can move these things around. You will see them appear and disappear, again, based on the features that you've turned on and off. Like if you didn't have e-commerce enabled, you wouldn't see this widget right here. If you didn't have forums enabled, you wouldn't see this widget or this widget right here. Sorry, this one's forums, this one's forums. I misspoke there. Anyway, so that is essentially what you would see on the dashboard. And there are options to change things around here. If there are things you don't want to see, then you can, turn them off there if you prefer to. So all of the functions you have access to as an administrator are available here in these menus on the left side of the page. Again, it is a bit different than standard WordPress because we block access to things like theme management and plugin management, some settings, just things that are not necessarily relevant and that would complicate your operation of the site. So we kind of streamline things and put them in the order that we think is of most value based on functions you'll be performing on the site as an administrator. Now, let's take a look at some of these so that you can understand what they are and how they're set up and why they are this way. So the first one that you're probably going to be using the most is users. And under the users menu, we've got a list of all users. We've got group management, your own profile, and the ability to import users from CSV. Now, I'm just going to go through all of these items really quickly. But there will be lessons that do go into more detail about each of these entries, what's possible, what they do, why you would want to use them. So the users list is where you would add users, manage users, see user information. It's all there. You can take a look at that and understand how it's all set up. So groups are LearnDash groups, and again, we'll cover these in a different topic so that you understand them. The next menu that we've got down here is where you manage everything related to your courses. So in terms of the course content, the course organization, as well as things like assignments and notifications and reports. So anything related to learners and the courses and progress within them is all under here somewhere. And of course, we do have modules in the course that are dedicated to these specific topics and what you will do within them. Pages and posts are, so pages are essentially static, well, they're fixed pages that aren't based on a specific time. So there's no date associated with them. They would be things like the home page, a login page, registration page, some kind of marketing page, contact page. The dashboard page that I showed you previously was also a page. Posts are things that you would normally associate it with a blog. So they're usually time-bound, associated with a specific date. They're organized by date generally. They usually have comments associated with them. They're things that are more likely to be shared. So this is more topical content, the posts that are here. And then comments can be added to posts. So again, anything on the blog. We have comments enabled out of the box. So you can manage comments, you can moderate comments, you can have users so that they can receive emails when there are follow-up comments to things they've posted about. So all comment management happens from within here. The next menu is content. So this is really media items, so media elements that you're putting into posts and pages, as well as LearnDash courses. Anything like that, anything related to media is managed through here. Like when you're initially adding it, you can add it directly when you're creating or editing a page or post or course page. But in terms of ongoing management, the media library is here. You can see everything that you've added and manage it there. If you're creating any tables, this is an easy way to create tables, and then you can just drop them into any of your pages or posts with a shortcode. So it's an easy way to create nice looking tables, which can be helpful in a lot of situations. H5P content, these are lightly interactive e-learning elements. So there are simple quizzes, drag and drop activities. You could do interactive videos. There are a lot of different options here. So it's a good idea to take a look at the samples, even take a look at the H5P website for samples of the content elements that are available. And it's just an easy way to drop simple interactive elements into an e-learning course and to create them directly from the site. So it's not going to be as interactive as something like Storyline or Captivate or Lectora or iSpring or any of those types of products. But it's an easy way to do it on site without buying software. There's no cost to it, and it's easy to incorporate. But one note here is that it's not tied into progress tracking or anything like that. So it's really it's more for self-assessment and just basically reflective activities, not necessarily evaluation. So not something that would be graded necessarily. That information is tracked. Like if there are scores associated with it, we do capture them in the system. Having said that, it's just not tied to mark completion or the course reports. So a little distinction there. Under marketing, we've got the ability to set up your own opt-ins. So these are like modal windows or like things that are tied to some kind of CRM application or marketing automation application, or even a mailing application like Aweber, MailChimp, Constant Contact, something like that. A way to tie those together so that you can capture email addresses, whether it's in a widget or a pop-up window, something like that. You can set up opt-ins here and make sure things are tied to your external accounts to manage drip campaigns or just regular automated campaigns or mailing lists, newsletters, that kind of thing. Social controls, social sharing. So this is how to manage. When we are at the front end of the site, you may have noticed that. Let me just open that up in a new tab. That on many of the pages there was an ability to share content. You can see over here through social media channels. And this is exactly what this is here. And then CRM integration is a little more advanced. This is where you would tie to an external application like ActiveCampaign or Infusionsoft to really integrate and set tags and manage your user profiles and just get a lot of behavioral data and then information on what people are doing or purchasing on the site and a way to control behaviors and activities around that. E-commerce is where you would manage everything related to capturing payment and then making things available like courses based on that payment. So this is where you can set up the e-commerce settings. So things like the email addresses to use, the branding for the emails, payment gateways you're using, things like that, all set within the e-commerce section. So forums we've got next. Again, this is just setting up the forums, managing the topics within them. Just a way to manage forums if you're using them. Forms are, there's a lot of options here. We use them for contact forms. We use them for course evaluation. You can capture all different kinds of information, and again, we'll talk about some of that in later videos. Event management is under the events section, so this allows you to set up events and manage them, track attendance, things like that. Gamification is for setting up the badges. So if you're using badges on your site, you have the widgets, you have an achievements page. They can be triggered based on WordPress activities. So things like logging in, leaving a comment, those kinds of things, as well as course activities. So completing a lesson, completing a course, passing a quiz, scoring a perfect grade on a quiz, things like that. These are all badges, and we'll talk about those a bit later too. Design elements. This is where we do a lot related to branding on the site, managing menus, managing sidebar widgets, managing who the emails are coming from, what emails look like. So it is important that you set those things up because out of the box, they are not configured for that, and it's important that you do define, exactly who you want emails to come from, what's the name, what's the email address, and then rebrand the logo as your own. So theme options. The site has a theme that defines the global look and feel. So these are things like, fonts you're using, font sizes, color scheme, color palette, margins across the site, the header, the footer styles, that kind of thing. So there are a lot of options there. This includes things like logo and favicon. So I'm going to cover those in the next video. But there are a lot of customization options in terms of look and feel and branding in these sections. So the settings menu is the next one. This is where we manage the overall site features, and some SEO settings are in there. So things like sitemaps. If you want to control exactly, what gets populated into sitemaps, how those get shared, that kind of information, that's in under SEO. And general settings is just some miscellaneous things that are required on the site. You're able to control some of them, and we'll talk about how to manage some of those in subsequent videos as well. So let me just skip down here then. Under Tools, this is the last one. If you have an existing site, you want to move pages or posts over to your Uncanny LP platform, this is where you go to do it. You would import in here. So that takes care of importing. And if you want to export to another site, then you can do that from here as well. Uncanny Toolkit, this is where you would manage the modules that control site behaviors that we looked at very briefly before. And then redirection allows you to set up really easy, simple redirection if you want. So if you want somebody visiting a particular URL to have like a short URL, or you got affiliate links, or you've moved things around and you want to make sure people don't get 404 page not found errors, you can do it from here. It also allows you to monitor 404 errors just to make sure that there are no issues on your site. So if you've deleted something, you can make sure that nobody's getting a 404, and you can kind of manage them in there and set up redirects if you need to. So that covered a lot of the back end of Uncanny LP. So again, the key points to take away from this video are just there is a different experience when you're signed in versus if you're signed out. Everything is managed by an administrator in the WordPress backend when you're signed in. So that's when you can control, everything related to setting up courses, managing the site look and feel, setting up events, setting up products that you want to sell. All of that happens in the WordPress backend, which again, really easy to get to. It's always in the admin bar up here. So you can click that and it will take you exactly where you need to go. So that concludes the basic introduction to Uncanny LP and what you'll find when you sign in for the first time. We hope that's helpful and that you will spend time going through the additional lessons so you better understand how everything is set up and what you can do on your Uncanny LP site.